ओके सो ग्रेट इवनिंग वंस अगेन। और आज फिर सैटरडे हम मिले हैं एक और नए वेबिनार के लिए, एक और कुछ नया सीखने के लिए। सो ग्रेट इवनिंग वंस अगेन एंड आई वेलकम एवरीवन। आई वेलकम डॉक्टर प्रदीप सर, ज्योति मैम, श्रद्धा मैम एंड ऑल पार्टिसिपेंट्स हेयर। सो आज 9th वेबिनार है सेकंड जीएलपी सीरीज का। और आज okay, so I invite Shraddha ma'am to welcome today's our mentor. So over to you, ma'am. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Akash. And even I welcome all of you on behalf of my team, Pacific Toxicology and ABCD Internationals. I hope you all are doing well. And today we are going to cover two very important topics like use of computers in GLP and archiving. So our both mentors needs no introduction, but still I'll say a few lines about Sir. Sir got more than 40 years of experience in the GLP, and he is thorough in the field, and he has established GLP in so many organizations, and he has written books for our guidance. So please go through the books and learn more and more. And Jyoti, she has got more than 20 years of experience, and she's GLP expert. And in her presentations, you will come to know so many things about archiving and everything. So please welcome both of them and learn as much as possible from both of them. Thank you so much. So please, over to you.
Thanks, Shraddha, for introducing as usual. In 8th webinar, probably you only introduced me over there. Thank you very much for this. It was wonderful experience, having you on this board. So you are also part of Pacific Toxicology, and Jyoti is also there. You both are directors of Pacific Toxicology. So you are great. You are doing good, and I feel that the future of GLP is in your hands in India. So it is very nice.
Thank you.
So coming back to our webinar, today's webinar is specially we have covered the topic use of computers in GLP. And archiving as well. Archiving will be covered by Jyoti, and I will be covering use of computers in GLP over there. So I will make the slides full screen. Okay. So use of computers in GLP over there, we will be covering most of why we are supposed to use and how we are supposed to use computers in GLP environment as such. So nowadays it is very common. We cannot work without computers. So it is becoming a part of life. Everywhere we are using computers for very, very small things also. Maybe you are doing shopping on your computers as well, home shopping or something like that. So obviously it has become part of our life, and let us face what is that we are supposed to use as far as GLP is concerned, these computers for all. So this presentation is an interpretation of OECD GLP principles regarding use of computerized system, considering document which gives practical guidance for use of computer systems in GLP environment with specific requirements for validation. So this is very, very important document number 17. You can refer on NGCMA guidelines. This is available for your information. But we will cover that, as well as what is that a test facility management should look into using computers as far as test facility is concerned. So we will cover that aspect in more detail over there. 1 minute, I will just okay. Computerized system in a GLP environment consists of computer hardware as well as software, which forms the computer system. What is computer system? We talked about computer system is software as well as hardware over there. And laboratory equipment is connected or integrated with this computer system, and together with the personnel, SOPs, training, etc., makes up the working process. This is what is there. So system means we consider personal, those who are working with that system. There should be SOPs for that matter, and the training is part of GLP over there. This whole gamut of computer system is called computer system over there. So we will not look into only hardware software part of it. We'll look into personal SOPs and all these working processes as well. So computerized system uh, are also available in LIMS, that is Laboratory Information Management System, like Provantis and various other softwares are available as far as management systems, computer management systems are concerned. We call it online systems over there. They are more complex and they require their server, their network terminals, etc., than the laboratory instruments connected to standalone PC. So obviously these are all complicated and complex computer systems like LIMS and Provantis and all that. So obviously that requires a lot of hard work, lot of validation, lot of work over there. So obviously if at all you have that in place, probably you are aware of what is required for computerized system when you talk about online systems over there, online data collection. Before validation, we need to define boundaries of computer systems. So obviously, when we say computer system, we need to define what is the computer system is all about. What is hardware, what is software over there. We need to define over there in your facility over there. So computer records, obviously, when we talk about computer systems, computer records are very, very important, and how to look into this. This is again a very important aspect of computer systems over there. This is whole industry now. Obviously, computer records is becoming very, very important as far as we are all concerned. LIMS or laboratory notebooks or formats, whatever you have, but still computer records are very, very important. Even simple balances, thermometer, pH meters can be hooked to the database. So you know that even simple pH meters or thermometers can be, made online for that matter. Like your temperature and humidity, it has become very common to install your thermometers and balances which are hooked to the computer systems over there. So we presume that we are not getting misguided. That is what is there. Although we are having all this, but we should not get misguided as far as computer systems are concerned, because there are a lot of things are happening in computer hardware and software as well. However, we need to keep decent data backup in the form of notebooks or formats. Although in GLP, we say computers are being used, but still GLP will believe on your formats, on your hard copies only. We are supposed to keep your backup data as well. So although you have computer systems, but your backup data has to be there and it has to be protected. Security should be in place. All this has to be worked as far as computer records are there. We will cover one by one in our following slides over there. GLP requires that you have to protect your raw data. Most important, what is important for GLP? Your raw data is very important for GLP. So you must protect your raw data as far as computer systems are concerned, because a lot of things are happening as far as computer usage is concerned over there. So it is called CVS. So what is definition of CVS? He says it is called concurrent version system. So concurrent version system, what is the version? So whatever version is available as far as computer system is there, it is called concurrent version system. Is a version control system for keeping track of all modification, because these computer systems are getting modified every month probably. So obviously you need to have upgrades. You need to upgrade your system most of the time. So still you can use your computer system for your GLP purpose, but how to use that, we'll look into this. Validation. So when you use this concurrent version system, so validation is important. Any modification is happening to your computer system, you are supposed to have validation of that particular system over there. validation of system, validation of programs, validation of hardware. All this is very, very important as far as computer systems are concerned. The demonstration that computer system is suitable for intended purpose, because most of the GLP definitions are said that it should be for intended purpose. So obviously even instruments should be for intended purpose. Animals when you get from outside, that should be intended purpose. Everything should be for intended purpose only. The validation process provides a high degree of assurance that a computer system meets its predetermined specification. So obviously whoever is knowledgeable in this computer system and determine what are the specifications are required for computer system, one can get that computer system and validate over there and keep in use as far as GLP is concerned. After validation, we are supposed to have verification of that. So verification means confirmation by examination and provisions of objective evidence that specified requirement have been fulfilled. Whatever specific requirements we have given, because user is very important in computer system. When computer user should say that I want my system for this purpose over there, and objectives are defined, and based on objectives defined, your system should be verified and validated over there. The scope of validation include implementation of hardware. So what is validation is required as far as system is concerned. I'm not talking about any program over there. As far as system is concerned, the scope of validation includes implementation of hardware, software, policies, procedures, and training of personnel on automated information system that house regulated data. Wherever you are having your online system, online data collection, you must have validation of all this, including people as well. Validation is the methodology of confirmation that the computer system meets requirements and that it complies with internal policies and procedures, because there is no defined guideline available over there, so that you need to have internal policies and procedure as far as verification and validation is concerned over there. Although guideline tells us to do verification and validation of the computer system, but there are no guidelines as far as how you are supposed to do that. That's the methodology, and confirmation has to be done by test facility only. Which system should be validated? This question is being asked most of the time. So it is very, very simple. As far as GLP is concerned, all computerized system used for the generation, measurement, or assessment of data intended for regulatory submission should be developed, validated, operated, and maintained as per GLP principles. This is what is there. So whatever systems you are using for doing all this regulatory submission, data analysis and all that, it has to be validated, operated, maintained as per GLP principles. The computerized systems delivering supporting data for GLP studies, for example, temperature, humidity should be considered. That's what I told you. Even your pH meter or thermometers or whatever it is there. So obviously you need to see to that they are supporting data as far as GLP studies are concerned. So this also has to be taken into consideration while you are validating your computer systems over there. All computer systems be validated which are involved in generation, measurement, or assessment of data, even if it is attached with any instrument. That is what is there. I told you that even if at all it is attached with your instrument, like your hematology analyzer or biochemistry analyzer, you are getting that additional computer systems to analyze the data on your systems over there. So obviously this also has to be validated. Vendor validation is allowed, but still you are supposed to validate based on your inputs over there, whatever inputs you are getting. So based on this, you need to validate your system, even if at all you have vendor validated software over there. Which system should be validated? Some pointers for decision for validation. I just wanted to highlight before you some pointers over there. The system used to produce, process, or maintain data intended for regulatory submission. That is what I told you over there. So whatever regulatory submissions, whatever data you are putting on the system, that should be taken into consideration for validation. Systems involved in monitoring environmental procedures. As in most of the facilities, environmental conditions are also controlled by systems. Building management systems are in place, and obviously when you have building management system, humidity, intensity, temperature, all this has to be controlled by your computer system. So obviously their validation is required over there. Systems which is part of GLP, subjected for GLP inspection, SOPs and training records. So obviously in many places I have seen that even SOPs and SOP training is on computers based over there. So obviously when you are having anything on computer based, so you are supposed to have validation for that particular system. And it should be dedicated for that particular purpose. That is what is very important, as GLP emphasizes on this over there. Which system should be validated? There are some fear factors available over there. Let me explain to you what fear factors we are supposed to face when validating computer system. Guidelines leave validation open for interpretation. I told you that whatever validation you are doing, you are supposed to have. Like you have study director, you should have validation director, and it is up to validation director for giving his or her interpretation as far as validation is concerned. Guidelines leave validation open for interpretation. That's what is very, very important, and we need to look into this and see to that if you are doing validation and you need to interpret, you need to have conclusions for your validation study over there, and it should be considered as study. I will come to you for that. Developing and following internal standards. So whatever internal standards you are having, you should develop them and follow them internally. Auditable standards, audit trials and all that. Auditable standard, whether you should be able to audit whatever you are having, that should be there in place. Personal accountability. It is very, very important that every system should be with personal custodian for that particular system, and he should be responsible for that particular system, and he should see that validation is done for his or her system over there. Time and resource constraints. Obviously it is very, very important. Time is very important for every one of us, and you should look into that. And it is one of the fear within what period. Supposing you are having GLP inspection, time is constrained over there. And volume of documentation, it depends upon volume of documentation. For short-term studies, your volume of documentation may not be the same for reproduction studies or cancer studies, because the volume of documentation is very huge in these studies over there. You need to look into, and the size of the test facility over there, number of people working in the facility over there, number of instruments and number of data generated in the system over there. It depends upon that volume of documentation over there. Now, critical issues of validation. You have critical issues as well. As far as validation is concerned, let us discuss about that. It is not reasonable to validate operating system. You cannot validate your operating system like Windows over there. So your system, that's the reason I said you must know what is your software, what is your hardware available to you, and Windows is there. It is not reasonable to validate. But still, I just say, when you are using Excel sheet for any calculation, for that matter, in a complex calculation, so that time probably you need to have validation. Or I will cover that in future points over there. The functionality of operating system is implicitly validated during the course of validation of computer system for its application. That's what I told you about that. For example, Excel spreadsheet used for complex calculation should be validated. That's what I told you about this just now. Software applications such as LIMS or Provantis with functionalities tailored to user requirement should be validated. So although there are softwares available over there, laboratory information management system and Provantis is one of them over there. So obviously, although they are very high funda softwares available, but you need to validate and prove that you can use this in your system, in your GLP system over there. So what should be the validation process as far as we are talking about validation? So obviously, what should be the process of validation over there? Test facility management should establish validation policy of a computerized systems in compliance with OECD GLP principle. In most of the test facility, you have IT person available. If IT person is not there, but still, if somebody should be made available for a computerized system, and he should be taking care on behalf of test facility and establish that validation policies are in place, and you do validation for all the systems which are used for GLP purpose. It is recommended that this policy should cover for the entire life cycle of computer system. That's what I told you, that lot of updates are getting over there, and every time you have new systems, obviously you must have look into the life cycle of computerized system, and based on this you should have your validation process over there. Validation policy should define the general principles of validation to be followed in the test facility. For example, validation master plan should be there. SOP which are dedicated to the particular system or group of systems from user requirement point of view. So you must look into this. If supporting same systems are purchased over there, so you need to have a validation for all the systems, but you must look into that group system should be validated. Vendor or supplier. So obviously vendor is very, very important. We call a vendor. We already cover suppliers responsibilities as far as suppliers are concerned, but vendor, we call vendor over there when they supply computer systems over there. When suppliers like third parties, vendors, internal IT departments, service providers including hosting services providers are used to provide, install, configure, integrate, validate, maintain, modify, decommission, or retain a computer system, or for services such as data processing, data storage, archiving, or cloud services, then a written agreement or contract should be in place over there as far as test facility is concerned from vendor over there. Whatever part of this is being done by vendor, so you must have a contract agreement with vendor. These agreements should include clear statements outlining the responsibilities of the supplier. What is that he is supposed to do as far as his computer systems are concerned? Clear statement of data ownership and all that. So there should not be any conflict between vendor and the test facility as far as data ownership is concerned. So validation strategy, as I told you that we need to discuss and compare with what is CVS concurrent version system over there, and GLP study and remarks over there. So in GLP study, you have study director. In computer validation, you should appoint somebody as a validation director. Hello, who is there? Who is making noise? Please mute all of them. So in GLP study, you are study director. Similarly, in computer system validation, you must have validation director over there. And this is ultimate responsibility. Like study director is the ultimate responsible as far as GLP study is concerned. Similarly, in computers validation strategy, you must have validation director who is ultimate responsibility for that particular plan. Validation, it is called validation plan over there. Study plan and validation plan. And study plan is approved by study director, whereas validation plan is approved by validation director. Method description over there as far as study is GLP study is concerned, but here you do not have method description, but here your test script, whatever you are validating, that test script should be taken into consideration as far as computer validation system strategy is concerned. Included in study or validation plan. It should be included in validation plan, and it should be method description in the study over there. Conduct of study as far as GLP study is concerned, but here there will not be conduct of study, here conduct of testing over there. He should be testing over there. Whatever is validation, he will be testing over there. And process executed as per the test script and validation plan. This is what is there. And here we call it raw data, here validation raw data, and documented evidence of test results over there. Study report, we call in study GLP study report over there, but in validation it is called validation report, and validation report should be also audited by quality assurance and signed by like study report should be signed by study director. Similarly, validation report should be signed by validation director over there. This should be the validation strategy as far as validation is concerned in test facility over there. Continuing with validation strategy, validation should be carried out at a local computer system at user site. Whoever is user, there only you are supposed to have validation over there, and make a report and keep like whatever I explained to you right now, validation thing over there, you should take care of that. You must have validation plan, you must have validation test, you must have data over there, you must write validation report only. So validation done at vendor site is not sufficient or valid. That is what GLP says. Many vendors, they will tell you that yes, we are validated over there, but that is not sufficient. GLP asks us to do validation on our own. Vendor provided test script or checklist can be used for validation at different location with specific situation over there. So you can use the script or whatever script I talked about for testing your computer system in your, you can take a help from vendor for that matter for validation. Vendor audit, although we are saying that validation should not be done at vendor site, but vendor audit is very, very important as far as computer systems are concerned. The user of computer system should make sure that system is developed or supplied as per defined quality standards and requirements of GLP principle. User should give what is that system he is requiring for data analysis or data entry over there, and based on this, whether vendor is supposed to submit that system to user over there. Most of the time, vendor supplied system design and quality documentation retained by him or her over there. In this case, vendor audit or qualification report should be available with test facility management, as well as if at all you have IT in your test facility, it should be available with IT as well, and as evidence of formal assessment of audit. Vendor audit as far as computer system is very, very, very important, and nowadays GLP auditors are putting a lot of emphasis on using computer systems for in GLP over there. We talked about life cycle over there. So let us understand what is life cycle is all about as far as computer system is concerned. Like we all have our life cycle, similarly computer system also has life cycle over there. The validation approach should be risk-based, and test facility management has the freedom to choose any appropriate life cycle model. That means whatever systems you are getting, you need to define what should be the life cycle of that particular system. And based on this, you decide whether it is 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever is there, you need to define that for that system, it is 5 years. And based on this, you should have your validation taking into consideration life cycle of that computer system over there. It should ensure validation activities are defined and performed in systematic way from conception, understanding the requirement through development, release, operational use to system requirement, retirement. Until system is retired, until that time you must have a defined and validation system over there from conception to full retirement, until retirement of that particular computer system over there. That is called life cycle. You must keep it in mind. It is generally used in computer systems over there. All relevant phases of life cycle should be documented and defined. No need to explain to this. It is very clear. Whatever relevant phases are there, you are supposed to be adding or modifying, or but whatever you do in life cycle of that particular system, it should be documented. Like instrument, whatever it is not working properly, you should get it repaired over there. Similarly, it happens with our system as well. So obviously you need to see to that whatever is happening to your system, it should be recorded, documented, well in place in your system logbooks over there. This may include the purchase, specification, design, development, and testing, implementation, operation, and retirement of computer system. I told you about this. This is what is there. Now coming to personal roles and responsibilities. What are the personal roles and responsibilities as far as computer systems are concerned? We will talk about that. So test facility management, already we have a definition over there, and has overall responsibility to ensure that the facilities, equipments, personnel, and procedures are in place to achieve and maintain validated computerized system. This is what is there as far as computerized system is there. Validated computerized system, that is what is there. So this includes a responsibility to establish procedures to ensure that computer systems are suitable for their intended purpose and are operated and maintained in accordance with the principles of GLP. Over there. The appointment and effective organization of an adequate number of appropriately qualified and experienced staff. That was is there. Although you have study directors, study personnel, all of them are using your computer system, but they should be trained into that and adequately trained. That's what adequate number of people should be there, and they should be qualified and experienced using the computer systems over there. And it should be in the CV record also, as well as their training records. They should be having that record in place. As far as study director is concerned, as you know, that study director is responsible for overall conduct of GLP compliance of the studies over there, and study director has the responsibility to ensure that all computerized systems used in the studies are validated and used appropriately. That is what is there. That is his responsibility to see to that computer systems are validated before they are placed into use as far as his study is concerned over there. And person who is using, he is also trained in using that computer system over there. Study director responsibility for electronic data is the same data for data recorded on paper. That is what is there. There is no difference between hard data and soft data as far as study director is concerned. He should look into both the things simultaneously over there. Data should be attributable, legible, original, accurate, complete, and it should be available over there. So obviously he should look into all this aspect over there, whether it is attributable, legible, original, accurate, complete, and it should be available over there. Before the initiation of GLP study, confirmation of the validation status of all computer systems that will be used should be verified by study director. That is what study director responsibility is all about. So he should look into that. Like all instruments, he should also look into computer systems as well. Now coming to quality assurance, as far as their roles and responsibilities for computer systems are concerned, quality assurance personnel should be aware of GLP relevant computer systems at their test facility or test site. Quality assurance responsibility for computer systems should be defined by test facility management and described in written procedure. Obviously, quality assurance should look into this, whether your systems are validated or not validated. Validation plan also, they should be going through validation plan. They should see to that whether it is as per OECD GLP principles or not. All this, like your GLP study, they should look into the validation study as well. Although validation report, validation plan, we call it, not study plan. Quality assurance should be able to verify the valid use of computer system. That is what is there, and They should be always on the move to see to that whatever computer systems you are having and they are being used for intended purpose or not. That is their role, to see that quality assurance, make sure that computer systems are validated and people are using validated computer systems. As far as test facility is concerned, what is their roles and responsibilities over there? Due consideration should be given to the physical location of computer. That's what I told you about that. Wherever you place your computer system over there, you must have a location over there. Every computer system should be located as far as you can also have a floor plan saying that your computer systems are placed at different places over there, including peripheral components, communications, equipments, and electronic storage media over there. Obviously, we will talk about communication afterwards, but for communication, you should have separate, computer systems. As far as data is concerned, you should have separate system. For communication, you should have separate systems over there. Extremes of temperature and humidity, dust, electromagnetic interference, and proximity to high voltage cables should be avoided unless the equipment is specifically designed to operate under such conditions. Yes, this was very, very important. I still remember my first computer when we purchased in 1987 over there, and we made a double air conditioned room, and nobody was allowed to enter into the room. Even footwears were not allowed. You are supposed to wear apron and all that. In 1987, I'm talking about. So obviously, now the computers are available. You can place anywhere and you can see to that there is no much. But still, electromagnetic interference is very, very important. You should see that high voltage line is going on top of your test facility. It may interfere with your over there. You may have problems with clouds and all that over there in operations with computer systems. Inventory, yes, an up-to-date listing of inventory should be in place for all GLP relevant computer systems, and functionality should be maintained. That is what they are. So you must have, if at all you are IT person over there, you should prepare a list of all computer systems. What is hardware? What is software? What is the operating system? What is it is used for? All this has to be placed. Who is the custodian? All this is to be there. Inventory should be, a list of inventory should be prepared for that one. It should cover all GLP relevant computer system. That's what I inform you about this. The inventory should contain the validation status, make, what is the make of that particular system, what is the model, what is the version as relevant, and business processes owner. That means so who is the owner of that, and IT system owner, system who has persons who has responsibility or accountability for the system. That means who is responsible for that, who is accountable for that system. It should be written on that inventory list over there. Now, coming to project phase, it is explained in your document over there. Computer system should be designed and demonstrated to be fit for purpose in a GLP environment and introduced in a pre-planned manner. That is what is that is what project. Even if at all you are purchasing a new system, you must have a project plan for that matter. You must have plan for purchasing any new system into your facility over there. The validation of a computer system, its documentation and reports should cover the relevant steps of life cycle as defined by the test facility management based on the complexity and intended use of a system over there. Now, coming to system description, we already cover most of the points, but still for your information, it is there, system description, a system description detailing the physical and logical arrangements. That means data flows and interfaces with other systems or processes, any hardware, software prerequisites, and security measures should be in place over there, should be available. An update system description should be maintained throughout the life cycle of the system over there. Testing, we need to test all computer systems over there, right from beginning installation testing, user acceptance testing should be carried out to ensure that system meets predefined requirements over there. So this is very important as far as there. So whatever user has given his requirement or her requirement, based on this, whether the system is behaving or there, and based on this, installation is being taken care of that. It is test facility management responsibility to understand the need of testing and to ensure the completeness of the test and test document. So you must have test and test document in place as far as testing is concerned. You must have testing of computer system, so you must have document for that matter. Data migration, it is very important to understand because when you have computers, you keep on sending your data from one computer to another computer. So obviously you must look into this, where electronic data transfer from one system to another, the process must be documented. And it is the test facility management responsibility to ensure and demonstrating that data are not altered during the migration process. That is what is there. Very important point over there. You should look into this. Data is not being altered due to migration over there. Exchange of data. Communication related to computer system broadly fall into two categories, between computers or between computers and peripheral components. That's what I told you, that your instrument is attached with peripheral components over there, or whatever peripheral components you have. So there should be, broadly, you must relate that communication between peripherals and the instrument per se over there. GLP relevant data may be transported automatically, unidirectionally, or bidirectionally from one system to another system. It is not that GLP is not asking to transfer data or exchange data from one system to another system. Yes, it is allowed, but you must have data trail, data audits as far as there, and data should be kept intact. There should not be any alteration to the data. You must look into that data is protected. You must look into security of data as well. So accuracy check, when we talk about this as operational phase, we we are coming to operational phase over there. Accuracy checks, test facility should be aware of all GLP relevant data entered manually into electronic systems. It is test facility management responsibility to adequately control any electronic data entry system regardless of its complexity. Finally, the full responsibility is test facility management to look into that. Whatever control and electronic data entry system are there, it should be, whether it is complex or simple, whatever is there, but accuracy check has to be in place over there. Data and storage of data. So it is very important to know you have a lot of data over there. When raw data is derived data are stored electronically, requirements for backup and archiving purpose should be defined. You must define what is archiving and what is your backup data over there. You must have mirror image server or what. So you need to look into this. This is very important as far as security of data over there, because data is very important for GLP, and it should be intact, it should be protected, and you should look into the security of your data over there. Backup of all relevant data should be carried out to allow recovery following failures which compromises the integrity of the system. That is what is there over there. Whatever backup is there, it should be relevant data should be carried out to allow recovery following the failure which comprises the integrity of the system. So you need to look into this when you are having backup over there. Stored data should be secured by both physical and electronic mix against loss, damage, or alteration. I talked about this. Stored data should be verified for restorability, accessibility, readability, and accuracy. We have already covered that, whether it is stored properly, whether it is accessible, whether it is readable, and it is accurate over there. You must see to that when you store your data over there, and this has to be done periodically. Once in a year or something like that, you need to define your periodicity for that matter. Verification procedures of stored data should be risk based. Access to store data should be ensured throughout the retention period over there. So whatever electronic data storage you are having, so you should look into that, the retention period, and you should look into the because it is risky over there. So obviously when it is risky over there, whether it stays there or not, you need to verify that every now and then over there. Now system retirement phase. The system retirement should be considered as a system life cycle. We talked about life cycle over there. So you are using computer system until its retirement phase over there. So when it is retiring, you must look into this, how it is retiring. Like any instrument is not being used, so you must see to that it is not being used for GLP purpose. You must keep a board on that. You must have a label on that it is not being used. So it is retired, you can see as far as computer systems are concerned. It should be planned, risk-based and documented. It should be planned when some system, computer systems are being retired over there. You must see to that it is all documented over there. If migration or archiving of GLP relevant data is necessary, risks to data should be excluded and requirements of these guidelines apply over there. So obviously retirement phase, whatever data is there on the system, so you must find out and you must look into the guidelines how you are going to make sure that whatever data is there on your system, whether it is archived, and when it is archived, what is that you are going to look into that archived data as far as that particular system which is retiring over there. Now we will just have some pointers as far as validation plan is concerned. Similar to your study plan, you must have validation plan. For that matter, I already told you about that. Purpose you must explain into your study plan. Validation should provide documented evidence that the computer system is suitable for intended use. The scope should be described and responsibilities should be highlighted over there. The scope of the validation plan should describe which system is being covered and its relation to other connected system. What is included and what is not included, you must explain into the scope. That means we should define boundaries of the system over there being validated. Location of the system should be indicated. In scope, you can highlight that responsibilities, whatever responsibilities are there, as far as responsibility concerned for validation related activities, who are the all people involved in validation, you must explain to that, and associated systems to be defined over there. You should have system description over there in validation plan. System description, which is operation and function, should be specified along with hardware and software components over there. So you must have complete description of the system in place as far as validation plan is concerned. Test environment. So what is the test environment? The test of hardware and software and its productive environment should be specified over there. So what is hardware and what is software and what is that it is going to do with your data over there? That is what has to be specified and tested as far as test environment is concerned. So test cases like IQ, OQ, PQ, all this has to be in place, and its underlying test scripts should be defined. Procedure and documentation of test results should be in compliance with GLP, for example, screenshots, log files, or maybe you can have printouts as well over there, and you can keep that attached to that with your validation plan over there. Procedure of that guidance should be provided for the conduct of test, the evaluation of results, and content of the report. Similarly, documentation, what documentation you are going to have as far as validation plan is concerned, an index of all documents related to the computer system, including SOPs and policies, should be developed and written. And finally, your validation plan should be archived over there. A list of documents and records should be written in archiving. What is that you are archiving? As far as validation plan is concerned, you must see validation study, it is called, and validation plan should be prepared for validation study over there. So validation report over there, so validation report should be summarized with all the test results and conclusion addressing the purpose and intended purpose of that. Summary, approval, GLP compliance statement, similar to that, quality assurance statement, because quality assurance will again verify that what is the purpose of validation, scope, system description, facilities, personal responsibility, what is the validation method, amendment and deviations, if any, results of test and discussions and conclusion, and finally archiving over there. That validation report from validation plan you are supposed to prepare and close the validation study as far as validation system is concerned. Validation report, we are already there. The validation director is there, like I told you about that. Study director and validation director were there for validation is responsible for conducting validation in compliance with OECD GLP. Validation director should give GLP compliance statement in the report. Quality assurance should inspect the validation report, and quality assurance should prepare and sign their statement confirming that validation report reflects the raw data. Whatever raw data is there, you should be able to do that. Now standard operating procedure, like any instrument, we have standard operating procedure similar to that. All standard operating procedures should be in place as far as computer systems are concerned, like operations, security, maintenance, change control. You must have all standard operating procedures for all this over there. How you are going to get your backups and whether and restore whatever is there, you should have SOP for that, should highlight backup and restore, including frequency of backup, period of retention, and responsible person for backup over there. Periodic testing, I told you about that, highlighted already. The system should be monitored periodically on regular basis, including device check and basic functionalities over there. And this should be done by maybe IT person over there, if at all you have in place in your test facility over there. Software development, if software is developed by user or IT person, standards of for software design, coding, testing, and version should be defined in software development plan over there. So you must have that in place. Standard operating procedure, archiving and retrieval, again very, very important aspect. Procedure should be described how and where documents will be archived, software data and where archiving, including the period of retention, retrieval mechanism, readability of and storage conditions over there, and quality assurance over there. And there should be a procedure how quality assurance will review and inspect the system life cycle and IT infrastructure in GLP regulated environment over there. System specific documents like installation manual, if at all your vendor is giving, that should be in place. User manual, if at all you have that, it should be in place. As far as user manual is concerned, you can ask your vendor to provide that. And release notes, if at all it is the system is released to the user over there, you must have test facility management should give a release note as far as that test system is concerned, containing information on changes and enhancement of the software compared to previous version over there. So you must look into this. Vendor audit report over there, then logbooks, source code, everything should be in place over there. Thank you very much. If at all you have any questions, I will attend to that. Otherwise, I will ask Jyoti, because Jyoti is again explaining to you the most important aspect of GLP, that is archiving in GLP over there. So all to GLP. If at all you have questions, we have 1 or 2 minutes, 1 question or 2 questions, we can have it. Thank you very much. Over to Jyoti. Yes. Jyoti.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for the wonderful session. It's really the need of the hour. Computers is like everywhere now.
Yes. Because we could get connected only because of computers.
That's right.
We could see and talk each other only because of computers.
That's right, sir. That's right.
Okay.
So
over to you, Jyoti. Okay. We will.
Akash, sir, you can stop sharing your screen.
Okay. 1 minute. Okay.
Is my screen visible, sir?
Yes. Make it.
Yeah, full screen. I'll make it.
Full screen.
Yeah, that's right. So, am I audible clearly to the participants?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am. Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. This is Jyoti Baveja. And first of all, thank you so much, Shraddha, for the wonderful introduction. And thanks to Sir for giving that wonderful presentation on the computers, which, as already said, it's the need of the hour. You know, computer is there in every arena, and preclinical research is not behind that. So we are having computers, and it's growing at an exponential rate. So we all really need to understand the importance and, you know, to follow the procedures which adhere to the principles of GLP. So another important topic which is related to the GLP is, of course, the archive, because as you all would understand that whatever materials or the raw data which is generated during the conduct of the study finally has to go to a designated place where it can be retained for lot many years, right? So there has to be a designated place, and that place is called the archive. So let's see what all we will learn today. First thing is we'll get to know what is an archive. Why do we need to archive? Why do we need to archive? We could just do the study, submit it, and then just discard the material, right? So, but why we need that place? Who is going to be held responsible for the management and control of archives? What and when are the records and materials goes into the archives? This is really important to understand. The various responsibilities, you know, will be handed over in this. And what are the various requirements of GLP compliant archives? Because you do have national archives, and but for GLP, there are certain other criteria which we need to meet for being compliant with the principles of GLP. Lastly, what is the archival procedure? That means how are the records and the materials archived and how they are going to be maintained in the archive. So let's start with what is an archive. An archive is a designated area, could be a room, could be a cabinet, a building, or a computerized system based on the size of the test facility, of course, and the sponsor requirements for secure storage and retention of records and materials. RNM. This is an abbreviation I've used. It's not a standard one, but I've used it because I'll be using it a lot many times in my presentation. So records and materials basically means the data and the specimens which are generated during the conduct of the non-clinical health and environment safety study, right? Usually the test facilities which conduct the GLP studies have their own archives. You know, this is really easy. This makes the life of a study director really easy to archive it once the study is completed. However, in case the test facility is not having an archive facility of their own, you can always have an option of a contract archives. You know, there are established institutions which have contract archives where the sponsor can get their materials and the records archived till the retention period. Now, why do we need to archive? So basically, there are two reasons. First, of course, is the regulatory compliance. Because why do we conduct the studies? They have to be submitted to the regulatory authorities, right? And the raw data and the specimens which are generated during the course of the study are the basis for final report submission, right? So that final report has to be verified against the raw data and the specimens, which we have submitted to the regulatory authority. So when the regulatory authority comes back to audit the study for specific, test item, they need to reconstruct the study entirely. So till the time you need, you have a GLP inspection or the regulatory authority inspection, you need to retain them. Right. So it's for the reconstruction of the study. Secondly, to confirm the compliance of the facility as per the GLP. Another important reason why we need to archive is, of course, the preservation, because that area, which is really safe and secure, provides, a benefit to the risk records and the materials against any kind of risk of accidental or malicious destructions. Finally, protecting the business interest of the sponsor. Now, who is going to be held responsible for the management and control of the archives? That's the archivists. This is a specific designation which is supposed to be used in all the GLP test facility, compliance test facility. It's not that you can have any other name. It's always better to use this terminology. This is very specific. Now, when we talk about archivists, there are few certain things we need to remember. First thing is the archivist should be directly reporting to the test facility management. There should not be in between somebody who is there between the archivist and the test facility. Same like goes with the study director who should be, and the quality assurance who should be directly reporting to the test facility management. Similarly, to avoid any conflict of interest, the archivist should be directly reporting to the test facility management. That means the test facility management should issue letters for designation of the responsibility to a person of the test facility. So it should clearly reflect in the curriculum vitae, the job description, and the training records of the archives. Now, as GLP always demands a backup, there has to be designation called the deputy or the backup archivist as well. In case the archive is a very big facility based on the test facility requirements, the archivist may need assistance of few other members as well. So those will be designated as archiving staff. Right now, as sir said, the computers is really important and covering in every area. Even we have computerized system in the archive as well. So there is a possibility that the archivist himself or herself is not technically competent in handling the computerized system of the archiving. In that case, you can also have a IT personnel in the reporting structure. As per the principles of GLP, it should be made clear that all these three designations, the deputy or the backup archivist, archiving staff, and the IT personnel, should be under the direct control and supervision of the archivist. However, a little exclusion would be for IT personnel because most of the companies don't really want that. So in that case, you can always have written agreements for the same reason, right? Now, what are the various responsibilities of the archivist or the archiving staff? First and most important, of course, is the entire management, operations, and the procedures which are going in the archives, and that has to be performed as per the established standard operating procedures of the archives, as well as with the OECD principles of GLP. Second important responsibility is archive is not an area which can be just visited by any person or any time. It needs to have a controlled access, right? We'll talk about it later in greater details as well. Another important thing, we all know a lot of records and materials go into the archive, and we really need to store them in an orderly manner. So that's the responsibility of the archivist. And it should be facilitated with an indexing system. Otherwise, it's going to be really chaos, when somebody asks. And to be very honest, the GLP inspectors actually look at their watch that how much time you are taking, the archivist is taking to retrieve a particular material. So you need to really know how about the entire archive facility, where what is being kept, and how you have done the indexing system. It would all depend on that, right? Then movement in and out of the archive for the records and the material. Ideally, it is not recommended that we should, retrieve the material out of the archives. But there are some exceptional circumstances which we will discuss later. In that case, it has to be appropriately controlled and documented. That's an important responsibility of the archivist. Moving ahead, what needs to be archived? We need to learn that. So we have basically two categories. First is the study specific records, for the very same reason it is being constructed. And second is the facility specific records, to know the overall GLP compliance status of the test facility. So let's start with the study specific records and material. I'm sure all would be knowing that, but still to revise, it starts with the study plan, the raw data generated during the study, final report, which is based on the results of the study, raw data, and the study plan. The various communications. When we say communications, it could be between the sponsor and the test facility, which is very important, it has to be there. Communication between the study director and the management, study director and the sponsor, quality assurance and the sponsor. In case it is a multi-site study, then comes the principal investigator. And in that very case, I can tell you there are a lot of communications because it's a multi-site study. There has to be a communication link between all the management, study director, principal investigator, quality assurance, that's the lead quality assurance, and the test site quality assurance and the sponsor. Everybody needs to be communicated. So these are very important and has to be archived. Then every batch of test and reference items which is being used for the study has also needs to be archived. Then the specimens generated, which includes the tissue, animal tissues and toxicity studies, and the blocks, tissue blocks, slides, and smears, all that needs to be archived as well. Then we have in vitro study I've taken specifically for the reason I'll just explain, that in addition to the normal, listed down materials, which I've just said, or the records, we need to preserve the test system. For example, some special subclones of cell lines are used, and they can be long-term preservable. In that case, you need to archive them as well. Plus, the records of the untreated control and the vehicle records, and the historical records of the positive control and negative control results also. And to be very honest, this is really important, because the historical records you basically use for providing justification, or the conclusion is based on the historical data at time. So this is really important, and definitely looked upon by GLP inspectors as well, or the regulatory inspectors as well. Moving ahead, in case you have a contract archives, there has to be certain additional documents, right? We need to deal with. So first of all is the formal agreement between the test facility management and the control archives. So that agreement should clearly describe that what all records and materials related to study will be archived, how they will be transported, excuse me. Can I request everybody to please stay on mute? Thank you. Okay. Okay. Description of all the records and the materials, their transportation. That means how from the test facility after the study completion, the records and materials will be transported to the contract archives. The chain of custody, who will be, initiating the transfer, and in between there is somebody, if it's going out of the state, you will have a transport available. So all that chain of custody from which person to which person, and finally the recipient of the at the contract archives, right? So what are the access control which will be provided by the contract archives, storage conditions, duration of storage, method of retrieval, return or disposal, and quality assurance activities and responsibilities. All these things have to be listed down in a formal agreement, and that has to be prior to the study conduct initiation, right? And it is also important to understand that the contract archives should follow their own SOPs. There has to be, because it's a GLP, so you need to have standard operating procedures as well. However, in case there are SOPs not available in completion with the contract archives, test facility can definitely give them their SOPs to follow the same, but that should be clearly written in the study plan of the study. Moving ahead, when we need to archive. So first thing, we need to understand that it is the responsibility of the study director to ensure that all the study related records and materials, which we just listed down, are transferred to the archives during. Why we are saying during? Because in long-term studies like CAR-C study or reproductive study, it's like a 2-year study, so you cannot keep the entire raw data and the specimen outside for a 2-year, of course, that won't make sense. So even during the conduct of the study, you can send the material into the archives in a chronological manner. Whatever is being generated is sent to the archives chronologically, right? Or if it's a short-term study, or if it's feasible, immediately after the completion. But it has to go immediately after the completion. The time frame can, of course, be is a call taken by the test facility management, and that can be specified in the SOPs, including the termination. When I say termination, it means probably a study has started, and due to some unavoidable circumstances or a scientific output, the study has to be cut through that particular time. That means it didn't continue as per the study plan it had to, so it was terminated. So in that very case also, you have to send the entire material and the records generated during the conduct to the archives. In case it's a multi-site study, then of course the procedures of archiving should be agreed upon and documented prior to or at the study initiation. Okay, let me ask, what is study initiation? As usual, who have an experience with me will know I keep on asking questions in between just to make sure that everybody's awake. Okay, can somebody tell me what is study initiation?
Study director signs the study plan.
Perfect, perfect. I'm sure everybody would have listened to that. Study initiation is the date when the study director signs the study plan, right? So in case it's a multi-site study, we were studying that. The principal investigator, PIs for principal investigator, those who are not aware probably, should notify the study director of the transfer of the study material to the archives immediately. This is a kind of a communication which I was talking about earlier. Then comes the facility specific records. Now this, okay, let me use a laser pointer. Another quiz, guys. Sorry for that if it's not, okay with you. But I need to be interactive. That's my weakness. Okay, this first picture, can somebody tell me what is it say or what kind of a record it is? It has to be facility specific. Okay, don't get confused with the study specific. Something which lists down the GLP, whether the study is GLP or non-GLP, name of the study director, test item. Anybody?
Looks like master schedule.
Perfect. That's right. Full points. If it would have been a physical, training, I would have given chocolates. Okay, so this is the master schedule. Okay, next, something which shows the reporting structure. What do we call it in GLP? Anybody? Something which is showing the reporting structure,
Hierarchy of an
Organization chart.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you so much, dear. That's the organization chart. Okay, moving ahead. Something which tells us about a person's personal knowledge, abilities, skills, training.
Training records.
Training records.
Yeah, collectively we call them
Personal records.
personal records.
Yeah.
That includes the curriculum vitae CV, the job description JD, and the training records. Okay. Then this. Okay, tell me what is this? It is not study specific, so don't get confused. It's not a raw data. It's not a study report. Something else. It's a kind of a report, a clue, or maybe something related to quality.
Statement. No, that's not a statement.
No, statement will go into the study report. Okay, this is
Quality.
QA inspection records. Quality assurance have their own records. So those are not called the study specific. Those are supposed to be retained at a designated different location in the archives, and we call them as QA inspection records, right? So now this last, not the last. We have some more. But what does this picture tells?
Floor plan.
Perfect. That goes well. Floor plan and the study plan. Okay, let's have some more. Okay. First, this one has to be a facility record.
Equipment.
I'm reminding again and again. This one, it's an instrument.
Equipment or calibration records.
Exactly. All the maintenance and the calibration and the records of usage has to be put in the archives, which is a part of the facility specific record. Wonderful. Okay, next, this one. This says it all. Right?
SOPs.
SOPs, but if anyone...
Master copies. Master copies of SOPs.
Okay. Can I have something, a collective
Historical record.
term for that? A collective term for SOPs which are there in the archives? It's a specific term which we use in GLP.
Historical record.
Ah, that's right. Perfect. Historical file of SOPs, right? So that doesn't only contain the current version of the SOP, but the obsolete versions, which are not existing anymore, the superseded versions, the amendment, if it might have happened. All these things are retained in the historical file of SOPs, which is a very important record, has to be maintained, because this only will help the monitoring inspectors, regulatory inspectors to reconstruct the study. The study has to be conducted as per the SOPs. So at that time, when the regulatory inspectors comes, they will first ask for all the related SOPs which were existing at that particular time, and they will tally whether it was all performed as per the SOPs existing that time. Okay, next, what is this?
Environmental monitoring records.
Perfect. You guys are going great. These are the environmental monitoring records, which cater to the recording of the temperature, the humidity of various areas. Archive is very important amongst them. Another example could be, of course, TICO, the formulation lab. Those have to be environmentally monitored because the criticality of the work performed there. So that has to be there. Okay, next. This word says it all. Sir just delivered a wonderful session on this.
Computerized system validation.
That's right. Validation document of computerized system.
Health checkup.
Very good. Very good. Another chocolate. Okay. Now what is this? Anybody?
Health
checkup.
checkups of
Health
all the
checkup
personals.
records.
Perfect. Medical records or the health services report. Clap for all those who answered. Thank you so much for making it interactive. Okay. Now, when facility records need to be archived, actually there has to be a regular basis, and it's absolutely on the basis of, it's a totally a test facility call to decide a frequency, but it has a frequency when a particular facility record will go into the archive, and that should be captured in individual or respective standard operating procedures, right? Moving ahead, what are the requirements for a GLP compliant archives? So our prime concern is, of course, to avoid the untimely decay or untimely deterioration. I'm sure the picture makes it very clear, right? So to have it untimely, we need to have certain requirements with respect to the facility or the environmental conditions, with various safety and security measures which will be taken by the archives, and disaster recovery plan, because it's not in anybody's control to have an environmental disaster or something. So that plan, but has to be there in the place, and the various SOPs which will be required by the archives to have its operation in compliance with the OECD principles of GLP. Now, start, yeah.
Your slides, some pane blur is coming, so we can't see properly. Some can remove it. Green pane, something is there in the slides.
What I need to remove?
Some
this
pane
thing? Where I'm pointing this thing?
Yeah, you pointed no earlier, so same slides are coming afterwards. Like that pane you use, no?
Pane used.
Yeah, marker.
Akash, can you help me with that? What I need to do in this, can you please explain me?
After some the slides doesn't look good, means pane use like green pane.
Ma'am, can you
okay, green pen. Somebody has marked something on this.
Akash is helping.
I'll stop sharing. Okay, I'll stop sharing and I can share again.
Yes,
probably this some participant has done it.
Yeah, somebody has done it. That.
Yeah, okay. I'll stop sharing and share it again. Don't worry.
Yes, sir.
I request all the participants to be a little more vigilant while doing such things, right? Okay. Is it fine now?
Yeah, yes. Now it is fine.
Yes,
yeah. Thank you.
Now it's fine?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for letting me know that. Thank you so much. Okay, let's go ahead, right? So after this prime concern, we start with the archive facility. So when we talk about any facility, of course, it all starts with the design and the construction. And for archives, it all starts with a separation required for two areas. First is, of course, the wet archives, and second, of course, is the dry archives. It's not something chronological. You can say dry and wet archives. It's perfectly okay. But what is the purpose behind having these two specific areas? So wet archives is for preservation of the animal tissue samples, which we have in the conduct of non-clinical and the toxicity studies, various toxicity studies which are conducted for the regulatory submissions. And dry archive is for the storage of paper records, in case you have some photographs and used in the study, in case some microfilms or tissue slides, smears, tissue blocks, electronic media, or the test item. For these, we need the dry archives separate to the wet archives. Why we need them separate? Because there are two different areas which needs different environmental conditions. There's a prime concern when we talk about the wet archives. I'll deal with it in the later slides. Okay, so you need to consider the space requirement. Depending upon the load on the archives, the instruments which will be there or the storage cabinets which will be there, please make sure to list down before you actually finalize an area of the archives, right? So I've just listed down few of the important storage cabinets or the storage material or the equipments which would have to be there in archives if it's going to be a GLP archives, right? So let's start with the compactors. Compactors, you can, it's not necessary to have a compactor itself, but you can have a almirah for that matter, or a wardrobe, or almirah, or storage cabinets, or, you know, something like shelves or something. It all depends on your investment in the archives. I think sponsor would listen to that. So because he is the one who is going to need that records and materials later on, right? So the compactors are really beneficial to use, because, you know, they are mounted on rails. You know, it is easy to move the individual units of the compactors, so it is easily retrievable fastly, and plus it has a security system of lock of individual cabinets, as well as the entire system, you know, one rail system. So you can have almirah. I'm not saying you should have compactors, it's just a recommendation. Then you should have the test item for storage. You can have the refrigerators in the archive. For blocks, you will have storage cabinets for the blocks and the slides and the smears as well. I've given this picture, you know, if you can see, this is used for the slide storage, and this one is for the block storage, right? Moving ahead, there have to be a cabinet for electronic media storage. As Sir clearly said, the increase of this is really, coming up, and we need to have, therefore, an electronic storage media cabinet. And the prime concern for having this is this provides freedom from the magnetic interference. Plus, in addition, it has to be strong enough to deal with the fire, resistance, and plus the humidity and the temperature are really maintained wonderfully in these cabinets for the electronic media storage. Further, the test item storage cabinets, like if it's a room, that of course depends upon the storage requirements of the test item. In case it's a room temperature, then you'll have a simple cabinet. Then in case it's a hygroscopic test item, then you'll have a desiccator. In case it has to be stored in, refrigerator, then you'll have a refrigerator, freezer for that matter. And the light sensitive, of course, you have a certain, steel cabinet for that matter. Then you can have, this was all for the dry archives, right? And for wet archives, you will have shelves. I would say it should not be closed enough, right? Because wet archives, as already I was mentioning, needs specific has specific requirements of ventilation, because animal tissue samples are preserved in formalin, which actually evaporates. Although they are sealed in bottles specifically, but still it is a very much important requirement for a wet archives to have a perfect ventilated air exhaust system. So wet archives is just different. Another important thing, which, with experience, I'm telling you, you need to consider the space for a key cabinet, because everything is locked right inside the archive. Not only the archives from outside the door, but the individual cabinets have to be lock and key. So there should be a key cabinet. Find a space before you finalize for anything else. Okay. Computerized system, as we all know, the usage has increased, and there has to be a computer system in the archives as well. Photocopier, this is also very important. I'll tell you in details later on. And the space for these stationery supplies, and the sitting arrangement for the archive and staff, and the archive specific records, because archives do have their own records, like the various SOPs of the archives, personal records of the archivist and the archiving staff. Then you have the forms and formats which archiving is using, the various indexes which are available in the archive for retrieval. So that comes all under the archive specific records. So you need to identify a place for that matter. So all these things you need to list down before you actually look for a space for finalizing the design or the construction of the archives. Now, the environmental conditions. This again is really important, because it's not just that for a few days you need to store the material, or a few months. We always talk about in years for that matter, and India, NGCMA, it is recommended to have it stored for 9 years. So that's a pretty long time. And environmental conditions do have a wonderful impact on the storage conditions, on the quality of the records and materials retained. To start with, temperature requirements. This is okay. I've said 20 to 25 degrees Celsius. It's my recommendation. It's not specified in the OECD principles of GLP that what range you need to specify. Let me be very honest with that. But it's an experience, that 20 to 25 degree, if it's maintained, it is a wonderful for the paper records and the documents which are stored in the dry archives, right? And if you say by Manual of British Archives or the National Institute of Archives, in that very case, they have specified that the best temperature for storage of paper records is below 20 degrees Celsius. If you can maintain that, it's perfect. But I would say that it is totally based on the area. Some areas you will not have below 20 all the time. Of course, it's India and GLP archives is everywhere. So in that case, what we need to understand is, you need to maintain something which is really constant. What we need to avoid is the fluctuation, because fluctuation is the one, a very high degree of fluctuation would be the one which will damage the paper record or the records which are there in the archive. So as far as you can extend the range to 30 degree as well. I would suggest not to go beyond that. Try to maintain maximum 30, but it should be constant. The more constant you are there with your environmental condition, the more quality will be maintained of all the records which are there in the archives. After temperature, we have the relative humidity. This is very important, and I'm sure you all would know that humidity is the one culprit behind the growth of the insects, cockroaches, termites, and the silverfish, or the bookworms, or the book lice, or the fungi, mildew. So many things are there. So this is the the culprit behind. So you really need to maintain the humidity, and based on the location, you can have either a humidifier or a dehumidifier installed in that area. Again, I would say 20 to 55% is the recommended one. It's not in some guidelines, but with the experience I'm telling you, and with the research of lot many papers, we have just I've just put it on this. And best would be to maintain it below 45%, not far below, but below 45%, right? Next is the amount of light. So when we talk about light, of course, we have nanometer of wavelength, right? So best wavelength, I would say, for records retention is in the visible range. So that's the 400 nanometer to 800 nanometer. So try avoiding the wavelengths below the 400 nanometer, because below wavelengths like includes ultraviolet rays, which can actually chemically damage the quality of the paper. So try avoiding that. Try to remain in the region of 400 to 800 nanometer, and with use of incandescent lights. And however, in case you are using fluorescent lights, you can use these ultraviolet filters. I'm sure you all can see this picture. This is a silver kind of covering. This is a kind of a shield, which is, just slided onto the fluorescent light, and it before releasing the light, it actually absorbs the UV radiations. So it kind of provides protection against the UV radiations. Then, as I already said, there has to be an air exhaust system for appropriate ventilation in the wet archives. Now it is, you can have a recording of the environmental monitoring parameters, which include the temperature and humidity, twice a day. I'm not saying you cannot, you can have it in the morning itself and the day starts and before the end of the day. But now it is recommended to have an automated monitoring system, because as I again specified, these are not records and materials which has to be there in the archives just for a short duration. It is a very long duration. As Sir was telling that the German GLP requires it to be stored for 30 years. So I'm sure you all would, understand the importance you need to maintain the environmental conditions for. So in case you have continuous automated monitoring system, they may have a alarm system also, and in case you have deviations in the temperature and humidity or the requirements, you can have that activated, and immediately the archivist and the test facility management is informed about the same. So you can immediately take corrective action with respect to that. Now, if you have systems, of course, you have to maintain them. So the entire maintenance, periodic maintenance, and calibration and verification testing has to be, records has to come along. It's a hand-in-hand process. Okay, moving ahead to security measures. As I said in the second slide itself, that the access should be controlled. That means archives is not an area which can be visited by anybody anytime, right? So as per the OECD principles of GLP, access to archives is controlled and restricted to archivist and archivist staff. That's it. Nobody else, right? In case we have an IT person also in the reporting structure, of course, that person will also have archives. So those in the reporting structure for responsible for the archives, those will have the controlled and restricted access to the archives. Otherwise, nobody else, right? However, selected authorized persons, which of course will include the technical person, because we have refrigerator, freezer maybe for that matter. So for those you need a technical person in case there is a breakdown, or you need a verification for that matter, or the calibration of the temperature and all that material, all that stuff. So in that case, you need the visit by a technical person. Pest control service person will be visiting, housekeeping person will be visiting. So all these personnel are authorized and they have to be approved by the management, right? So you can have a letter issued for that matter, and your SOPs should also cover. So that listing that these person will be allowed, and approval has been taken by the management already. And that also, in case any one of these persons are visiting the archives, they have to be accompanied by archivist or a member of archiving staff. So that means nobody enters the archive without the presence of archivist or the archiving staff, except, can somebody tell me when? An exception where the person is unaccompanied by the archivist and has to go in the archives?
GLP auditor, ma'am, during audit?
No, during audit,
emergencies.
archivist has to be there. Yes?
In emergency situations, security
Perfect.
personnel can access the
Perfect,
security.
perfect. That goes perfect. During an emergency, this is the only clause where the emergency security or the technical person, could be a fire or safety person, may enter or operate archive unaccompanied, right? But for that also, you need to have proper documentation for the same. So physical security, when we talk about it, all starts with the use of a lock or electronic entry system or the key card access, right? Moving ahead, as I already said, the entire thing has to be documented. Whosoever is entering the archives, except the archive and the archivist and the archiving staff, every entry should be recorded. So we call them usually entry-exit records. And there's no rocket science. It will have the date of visit, of course, name of the person who is visiting, the reason for visiting the archives. Then we can have the time in and out, the signature of the person who is visiting, and last by the initials or the signatures of the archivist or the archive staff, right? Then for electronic records, as we discussed, that there has to be electronic storage media cabinet, physical security should be maintained in terms of lock and key. And then in case it is a computerized archiving or the electronic archiving, we call it, there has to be processes to prevent unauthorized access. That means there has to be a password protection. So as Sir said, you don't need to have the archivist will have the user code and the password. The archiving staff will have their own. So only these people will be allowed, and rest all who will be allowed will have only the read-only access, right? Probably the QA quality assurance inspectors which have come to visit, the GLP inspectors or the regulatory authority inspectors, that we'll discuss. And in addition, there has to be protection processes maintained for the virus protection as well. As I think I already covered that, the test facility management might authorize read-only access on electronic records to a broader community, which includes the quality assurance inspectors, the GLP inspectors, the regulatory authority inspectors, and the IT guys, right? Okay, special considerations has to be, now we talk about the safety measures. So we need archives facility safety in terms of the two very important parts, which, environmental conditions, which are the flood and the fire and the explosion, right? For these risks, it is mandatory to, in case there is a specific area which is flood prone, right? In that case, you need to make sure that you build archives at a higher floors. You have installation of water detectors. You have appropriate water drainage systems. I've read it in the National, Archive storage that even if the archives is flooded, if you, restore the papers or the records in the archives, till 72 hours, not after that, till 72 hours, you can still restore that paper, That is why we use, I think we were having a discussion that day, ink we don't use, because that will automatically go off in just minutes or something, but we use ball pen for that. So 72 hours, if we still get a reach to that material, we can restore that, right? So next, of course, is the prevention of the risk from the fire and the explosion. And it is always recommended to have an automated fire or smoke detection system, including the suppression system as well. If you can see that, this is an image where this is installed in a certain facility. It's a fire monitoring and suppression system together, right? So we can have them installed. Okay, safety measures also includes the preservation from the pests and the rodents. So for that matter, it should be designed to prevent the entry of the rodents. You can of course have the pest control procedures installed for that. Your SOPs should cover that clearly. And when the material is received at the archives, you can check the records for the infestation, so that you can, in case they are not appropriate, you can just return them, right? Or maybe you can send it to a conservator for that matter. For, usually the fumigations are also carried out in the archives to avoid these kinds of infestation, but that has to be in the presence of a conservator, right? When we talk about the temperature critical equipments, these has to have a backup. Okay, disaster recovery, as I said, it's not in your hands, right? But what is there in your hands is to have a disaster recovery plan for that. And the plan and the procedures should include the emergency contacts. See, this person is contacting. Okay, so emergency contacts should be displayed. You can have it display on the door of the archives. One copy probably in the dry archives and one copy probably in the wet archives. So it's easily accessible, and the person whosoever has noticed an alarming situation can directly contact. Of course, we'll have a list of archivists and the archiving staff and the test facility management and the fire brigade and the police in case of a theft or something. So those numbers, very important numbers should be listed down in that. You need to have an identified location of the necessary equipment, that whatever equipments are there in the archives, what location they are exactly placed, including the location of the backup equipment as well. So that in case there is an alarm situation, you can shift that material to the backup equipment, right? And in case something has happened, you need to place in procedure sequence of, detailing the entire documentation of the event, what exactly happened, So there has to be a documentation of the event and steps which will be taken by the archivist or the archiving staff to resolve or restore that conditions. You have to completely list down all the recovery and restoration of the lost or damaged records and materials. And in case there is a theft or something, we need to re-establish the security of the archives. Now comes the archive procedure for records and materials and electronic media as well. It all starts with the preparation of inventory. In case it's a study specific record, obviously the study person will prepare the inventory. And in case it's a facility specific record, then the responsible person who is there for a particular facility record, he will prepare the inventory. Inventory has to be there in the form of a approved format. Like we all know, GLP is all about using approved forms or formats, right? Could be a logbook, could be a book in that matter. So, but it has to be, inventory has to be there in the approved format or a form which is approved by the management. So first you need to prepare the inventory, then it is confirmed for completeness. If it's a study related record, it has to be confirmed for completeness by the study director, or if it's a facility record, then it has to be confirmed for completeness by the in charge of that particular facility record. And once it is done with the verification of the completeness, then it is verified by the archivist upon arriving at the archives. So archivist verify whether all the records of the materials he or she has received are in accordance with the inventory, shared along with that. So to add here, if it's electronic media, there has to be a use of appropriate equipment. That is why I said you need to have a computer in the archives as well, because that time you need to verify that how many numbers of files, what all projects are there stored in a particular electronic media. So electronic media is verified, and after both the verifications, archivist has to acknowledge the receipt. That means to ease off for you, the format which you will have as inventory can have the signature of the person who has prepared that inventory. Then of course the confirmation by the study director or the in charge, and then signature of the archivist, and the photocopy of that form can be given back to the study director or the in charge as an acknowledgement. That has to be there. It's a part of the OECD principles of GLP, so you cannot avoid that. The acknowledgements will be maintained if it's a study related by the study director, if it's a facility related, then by the person who is there in charge of that particular facility record. And those have also to be archived at a particular frequency. So once the material or the record is already in the archive, the acknowledgement is sent to the study director or the in charge. It should be indexed. Indexing is very important because this is the only thing which is responsible for fast retrieval, right? As I already said, fast retrieval is really important of the various records and materials stored in the archives. So actually, I said the clock or the watch is watched by the GLP inspector or the monitoring or the regulatory inspector, that how much time the archivist is taken to retrieve a particular. The more fast you are, the more stringent and complete is your system of indexing. So I would recommend that you have an index based on the types of the records. That means you can have a record for the separate index for the study plan, separate index for the raw data, separate index for the quality assurance record, separate index for the master schedule. Major types of records you can have. It can be also based on the departments, because few test facilities, we have many departments, the formulation department, analytical department, map department, TCO department. So you can have even the department. We were talking about the compactors, so what I have experienced is one compactor for one department. So you can have it that way also, right? So based on the type of the material and the departments you receive the records from, you can have the indexing. It's totally archivist call, but make sure that the indexing helps you in fast retrieval of the records and the materials. Then once it is indexed, the entire material and the records are indexed, they are placed at their respective places. Like we said, if it's a test item based on the storage conditions, it will go either to the cabinet, either to the freezer, either to the refrigerator or the desiccator. If it's a record department specific, it will go to that compactor. If it's a QA record, to that particular compactor, right? Or that particular Elmira or something. And finally, it has to be retained in the archives for the defined duration, which is captured in the respective SOPs. Okay, in case of electronic archiving system, we have certain few more things to remember and understand that for electronic archive system, the archivist should be the system owner. Sir already explained in his presentation that what is a system owner. That means he is the one who is accountable for that system, right? And all data associated with the reconstruction of the study needs to be migrated to dedicated electronic system. There has to be you cannot just use a simple computer as a computer for anything, you are checking the mails on that, you are storing the records. So there has to be a dedicated electronic system for archiving of the GLP records. It includes, but not limited to, the raw data, metadata, audit trails, e-signatures, associated hardware and software that allow the availability of all records in future. What is very important to understand in this is that electronic media which is used, or the electronic archiving, should be there in the human readable format, till its retention time, till the monitored regulatory authorities come for the study audit and they inspect it. They should be able to read those slides, whichever are stored where, they just open the system and you should be able to view them, right? Human readable format, we call it. Moving ahead, retention time. This is again a very important, aspect of archiving, because as I said, it's not a short duration thing. Ideally, as per the OECD principles of GLP, it should be defined by the regulatory authority of the specific country. Like in India, we have NGCMA, US, FDA, MHRA in UK. So the different regulatory authorities should specify that how much should be the retention time, and it is strongly recommended that it should be retained as long as the regulatory authorities might request GLP audit of the respective studies, because that's the main reason behind doing it, right? In case, however, the retention period have not been defined by the regulatory authority, it is highly recommended that all the study related records and materials and the facility records should be retained for at least 3 inspection cycles. That means 3 years, 1 inspection cycle. So you have totally 9 years. In at least India, we have that, right? And in FDA, I think it's 5 years. Yes. Once the non-clinical study is submitted to the FDA, they say you need to retain it for 5 years. Okay, now this is very important. Another important thing. There are few things which have a quality based on that particular material, like test items. You cannot expect a test item to be, you know, always be stable with contents to the quality for so many years, right? So in that case, all the guidelines have specified that you need to retain them till the quality of that particular material, could be a test item or a blood smear or a tissue sample, should be retained till their quality permits evaluation. That means till the time you can analyze it, you need to retain it. In case it is not readable, it cannot be evaluated or analyzed, there's no point retaining it, right? But you need to discard it in that case. But in case you are discarding prior to the mentioned retention period, you have to take appropriate authorizations and approvals from the test facility management and the sponsor both, right? Do remember this. And it should be clearly documented, because these are the things which are very critical and always looked upon by the regulatory as well as the monitoring authority inspectors. And electronic records, probably due to some hardware or software issues, it is no more readable, then you need to migrate them first into an appropriate electronic media, and then you need to discard them. Again, properly maintaining the authorization, approvals, and the documentation. Moving ahead, movement of materials, archived materials in and out of archives. As I already said, it has to be, avoided. Maximum time you should avoid it. And it is always recommended to refer them in situ. In situ means within the archive area and in the presence of archivists, in case I said you that we will be needing a photocopier. So here, what comes the role of the photocopier? You can always have a provision to, give photocopy of specific records which are required for justified reasons. I'm saying justified reason because you need to take an approval from the management for getting any photocopy as well. You need to justify why you need that particular photocopy, but that is allowed. And it is always recommended to have this provision of photocopy rather than moving a material outside of the archives. Let me be very clear. The minimum you move out the material, the best for it. But at times you have certain exceptional circumstances where you have to, we'll just discuss about that. So in case you are giving a photocopy, make sure it is approved by the management and it is clearly documented, and you need to stamp that particular photocopy as it's just an example. I've said that certified true copy, you can have only true copy, or whatever, a certified copy, or anything. It depends on your requirement. You can just stamp it and give it to the person who has requested it. However, there are some exceptional circumstances when you actually need to retrieve the material out of the archives, right? So that is the case when you have inspections by the regulatory or monitoring authority. That time they need the data, of study in case we have a study audit by a regulatory authority, then you need to give them the raw data at their sitting place where they can actually audit that raw data and the specimens probably, right? So they have to be given out. But in that case, you need to make sure that your standard operating procedures clearly define who is permitted to withdraw. Like for study, maybe the study director is the only one who can, apply for the withdrawal, and who can authorize. That's of course the test facility management, and the time frame also should be there, within which time frame it all should be returned to the archivist. On return to the archivist, what archivist needs to do is that it has to verify the entire material which has gone out has come back in completeness and unaltered. That is also really important. You need to verify them. And in case there is any discrepancy, you need to inform the management for the very same reason. Now, when we talk about electronic media, in case you are viewing the electronic records without any possibility of alteration or deletion of the archived electronic records, and may probably making a replica of that, or migrating it, then it is not called a retrieval. You need to remember this, right? Another aspect of related to archives is the transfer. Probably after the study is completed and the retention time is over, or maybe even it's not, the sponsor requires us, then you need to transfer the records and the materials to the sponsor. For that situation, we need to have a documented agreement between the sponsor and of course the archives and the test facility management, and a transfer plan before any transfer occurs. You need to make sure that there is no risk of loss or damage. Once it is verified and accepted by the recipient, usually it's the sponsor, now it becomes the responsibility of the sponsor, right? Or maybe the sponsor is transferring to another GLP compliant archives, then it becomes the responsibility of the archivist of that particular archivist, right? So no more the one who is transferring retains the responsibility. It gets shifted to the recipient. All the parties which are involved in the transfer should retain the copies of chain of custody documentation, and the transfer of archived materials between the computerized systems should also be documented and conducted as per the migration plans. Like we have for records and documents, the transfer plan. When we talk about electronic records, we call it as a migration plan. The transfer process should also be communicated to the quality assurance, and they can be inspected by the quality assurance department of the test facility as well. As such, quality assurance will be auditing the entire procedures of the archives, included as a facility-based inspection. We have already learned about that. So, but this is another inclusion in case if there is a transfer, then the quality assurance should also inspect that process. Now comes the disposal once the retention period is over, probably, or in case it is the quality, as we said, the quality no more, requires evaluation or cannot be analyzed, you can discard it. For that reason, you need the test facility management and, if applicable, sponsors authorization as well. For that, you need to have a well documentation of the reasons for the same. You need to inform the quality assurance and document it in completion. Whatever records, each and every bit of information, probably if it's a collection of forms in some raw data, all those listed forms with the control copy numbers should be clearly documented, whichever is going to be disposed of, So, and the quality assurance should also inspect that disposal. Now, the last thing, of course, is the closure of an archive. This happens in case the archive facility is going out of business or there is no legal successor. So as per the principles of GLP, all the records and materials have to be transferred to the archives of the sponsor. And it is the responsibility of the sponsor to take care that he or the sponsor transfers it to another GLP compliant archives only. Otherwise he will lose the business, once the regulatory authority comes back and they are not able to make out that another archive was GLP compliant, you are just gone, right? So, but in case there is a closure, there is one more requirement, additional requirement, that in addition to informing the sponsor, we need to inform the National GLP Compliance Monitoring Authority as well, because this is a big issue. The entire archive facility is going out of business and is closing down, right? And in that case, after the transfer has been made, the National GLP Compliance Monitoring Authority will also inspect the archives. Now, this is the exhaustive list of the SOPs, and we have discussed all of these in details. So the entire procedures we have just discussed need to be listed down in these separate SOPs. You can get this list in the OECD document number 15 clearly, right? I don't have to read it out, of course. Okay, challenge question. That means the end of the session, right? Everybody ready for the challenge question? Okay, ensuring that all study-related records and materials are transferred to archives during or immediately after the completion of the study is the responsibility of the archivist. Yes. Yes or no?
No.
Yeah?
No, it is the responsibility of study director.
Perfect. May I know who's there?
Rohini, ma'am.
Rohini, thank you so much, Rohini. That was really nice of you. That means you really heard the presentation well. It is
Thank you, ma'am.
it is the responsibility of the study director. Once it is in the archives, it is the responsibility of the archivist. Yes, that's true. That's true. Wonderful. Next. I don't have many more, don't worry, this is the last. Okay, so archive has controlled and restricted access to archivist and the archive staff only.
No.
Yes or no?
No.
No, it's yes. I said that very clearly,
Yes.
that as per principles of GLP, it is controlled and restricted to access to archivist and archive site only because you don't need a documentation for them entering the archives, you know, as we clearly mentioned that time, that anybody else who is entering the archive has to be accompanied with the archivist, right? So it is not, the control is entirely with the archivist and the archive staff. As in anybody else entering, except the technical, you know, during the emergency. But that's a situation which is not in our control, right? So except that, it should be restricted to archivist and archive staff only. Wonderful. Okay, this is not a challenge question. Don't worry. It's just an additional information I got. Can somebody tell me when is the International Archive Day? I'm sure nobody would know that. Okay, even I don't knew that. I got to know that recently. Don't worry. It's June 9th, right? Okay, thank you so much for patient listening and being interactive. I love that being interactive, you know, with all of you. Reference is, of course, the OECD document number 15 of the OECD, which is an advisory document of the working group of GLP on establishment and control of archives that operate in compliance and principles of GLP. We are open to QA session now. Thank you so much for patient listening. And for any queries, you can always reach out to Dr. Pradeep, sir, or I think I should add Shraddha's name also here, and myself, Jyoti. My numbers are there. Sir's number is there. Anytime you can reach out to us. Thank you so much. Now I'll stop sharing the screen and we can have a QA session.
I would like to ask one question. That was a very nice presentation, ma'am. Can archivist be the part of a study? And can the archivist involve?
No, I would say.
The study?
No, archivist cannot be a part of study because that's a clear-cut conflict of interest. You know, the material or the raw data and the specimens generated during the study will finally go to the archives. And if archivist is involved in the study, that would definitely show a clear-cut conflict of interest. So that is definitely not allowed by the OECD principles of GLP.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're most welcome, Dr. Pradeep.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Wonderful, Jyoti, you are rocking.
Thank you so
like
much,
that.
Thank you, Shraddha.
Congratulations
Thank you for that.
for your wonderful session. It was really, although it was, you know, like paleobotany, we used to call it a boring subject. Archiving is a boring subject as such, if you look into that. But still, you made it so interesting and interactive. It was wonderful for there. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. If there are any questions for Jyoti and me, you can ask over there. Shraddha, you have any? Yeah.
Hello, Shweta. Sir, ma'am, I want that previous slide, reference slide. Would you please?
Who is there?
Shweta, I think that's Shweta. Shweta, can you be please a little louder? I cannot hear you. Hi, Shweta. Yeah.
I want the reference slide.
Reference slide.
Reference slide. Okay.
Yeah, please.
That's OECD document number 15. You just type it on the OECD in the Google OECD document number 15. You'll get that.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah. You're most welcome. You want me to show it?
Yeah.
You want me to show it? Just a second.
No,
it's okay. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're most welcome.
Actually, I got one question here. When you say like archiving of test system, like in vitro test system, so do they have to maintain a liquid nitrogen container inside the archive, or they can borrow some space? They can borrow some space in the main laboratory also, like some rack.
Right. Ideally, if it is possible for the, it all depends upon the investment you have in the archives. If it's possible, you can have a storage system in the archives itself. However, I know it is really difficult to have such an expensive equipment in the archives. So you can definitely borrow, but make sure it is under the complete control of the archivist,
Maybe they can put some lock system there in that particular rack. Yeah.
Yes, most of the facilities they are doing that.
Only
Very rarely you will find that liquid nitrogen containers are available in archive.
Right.
So,
that's why I said
so they have to
possible
maintain
for the
lab.
sponsor to invest that much. It's okay. If
Yeah.
not, definitely that can be followed. Thank you so much for putting up your videos on. That's really nice to see you all.
Okay, Akash will ask everyone to. Yes, Akash.
Yes. Thank you for wonderful sessions, sir and Jyoti ma'am. And I ask
Thank you so much.
I request everyone, please start your video. So हम क्या है ना कि memory हमारी रहेगी, तो एक photos वगैरह रहेंगे तो और अच्छा लगता है.
And we can all smile.
So put on your smile.
Memories.
Put on your smile.
Yes.
That is not restricted in GLP.
Right? You don't have to control your smile.
Yeah, you cannot control that. Yeah.
That's wonderful, sir. That's wonderful. So you all like the session today?
Yes, ma'am. There is one question, ma'am.
Yeah.
Hello? Yeah. So is there any educational or qualification criteria for the archivists as per the GLP?
No. I would say life sciences is enough, and you can have appropriate trainings. As we all say in GLP, the more you are trained for a specific purpose or job to do, the more competent you are. It all depends upon the training.
So is it necessary to be an archivist from the science background? Or if it is okay from the art or
when we talk about GLP and toxicology, I'm just telling you, in case you are working in a GLP test facility, I'm sure you'll be having a background of the life sciences. So it is always recommended to have a life science, but even an IT person, of course, can be delegated with appropriate trainings. I would say that, right? I myself is from life science background, toxicology. I've done masters, and I was given that responsibility one point of time.
But for quality assurance and archivist, there are no.
Sir, I've handled not many domains.
Many facilities I have seen there from arts and commerce graduates are also working as archivists. So it is not necessary. Only what Jyoti told you about the training is very, very important. And you must train in GLP, whether you are a master's or PhD or veterinarian or doctor, whatever it is, but you need to have your training in place. That is very, very important as far as GLP is concerned.
Very true, very true.
Yeah.
Fine, Dr. Sachin.
This is Piyush. Thanks a lot to everybody, ABC International and Pacific Section. Ma'am, actually, I'm having a concern. It's a question which is regarding to the sponsor. Actually, ma'am, I have seen at the time that sponsor was supposed to submit the study to NGCMA, and they were having doubt that in the future they can need the.
They were having doubt.
They were having doubt that they can they might need the TK samples. They wanted extra samples to be preserved after the study, even after the report is finalized. So what is the actual the best way the possible way to store those samples? So it should be archived because it should be stored even after the report is finalized, and NGCMA will may ask them to analyze samples even after the report is finalized. So what is the best way to handle the situation?
In that very case, it is important to, reopen the study. Like we have reopening of the cases. So we have an amendment to the report that will be made again with the addition of amendment of the report. You need to issue an amended report for that matter, which will clearly specify that these items are also archived, because your report should clearly list down all the records and materials which will be going to the archive, right? That's an important part of the study plan as well as the report itself. So in that case, you need to have an amendment of the study plan as well as an amended report. Then you make an amendment, and then you again follow the entire procedure for the report specific preparation and the approval, all the procedures, and then you can send it to the archives again. So amendment is the solution in that case.
Ma'am, actually I was asking for the PK samples. If they want extra samples to be preserved, so they need to be deep freeze. But in generally, we are storing samples around -70°C. So if they want extra samples to be preserved for a longer time, might be for half a year or 1 year or 2 years. So more than a year. So those samples
that can be specified very well.
Yeah.
In the documentation. Yeah.
So those samples should be also archived in the archival section.
Yeah, definitely. Those can be, if the facility is equipped enough to retain them for the duration you are specifying. The documentation should clearly mention where it will be stored and for how long it will be stored. You know,
Jyoti, his problem is that it is for future studies he is talking about.
No,
that
sir.
right?
No, sir. For the same study. If the regulatory agency asks,
a study has already happened and the sponsor wants it, right?
Yes,
that's right. That's right. So as I said, there should be clear documentation of what all needs to be retained, where, and for how long.
Okay.
Yeah.
And ma'am, those samples, if the archiving section is not having a deep freezer, so could those samples be stored at the test facility itself, and those can be mentioned that these are under the archival control on the TFM control?
Yes. Like Shraddha asked for in vitro samples test systems, very same reason you can have an area designated in your map department itself, but designated, clearly mention that area is restricted to the access of the archivist, because that material is storing the archived material. You need to clearly mention that, right?
Okay,
and that should be clearly documented.
Okay, ma'am. So other study samples and other samples could not be stored in that deep freezer or that.
No, you can probably have a stored container for that reason and put a lock and store in that bigger equipment. That way, if it's feasible, I'm sorry. Yeah.
And then the lock and key should be handled by the archivist only and not by the study person or study director.
No, the lock and key will be there with the archivist.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. Any other question?
If there are no questions, we can close our session.
See you in next session.
Akash is waiting for that.
नहीं सर, कितने भी क्वेश्चन आंसर हो सकते हैं पार्टिसिपेंट्स से. No problem.
Thanks a lot, Akash. I'm really
thank you so much once again to all of you
appreciate
for attending the sessions. That's really motivating,
Motivating,
yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Thank you for both the sessions. I have one question for doctor, like for e-signatures. So how could be in computer system e-signatures are valid, or means I am a little less experienced in the e-signatures, but in future in our facility may comes. So how we can go for that?
Okay, very nice question you ask about this e-signature. Again, I told you that you have to have all signatures, name of the person, small signature, long signature, and e-signature over there. You must have a document for that matter, and it should be placed in your e-signature area where you are storing that. And e-signatures can be used now in GLP. That is what I came to know about this recently. They are accepting e-signatures because on SOPs and all that, it is required for that matter. So obviously e-signature is allowed, but it should be validated for that matter. And you need to validate that document. And then only you can use that e-signatures for your documents.
Yeah.
But not on study plan and not on your final reports. That's what is all about.
And we are going more for computer systems and other things. So what about chromatograms for in analytical?
There you can have e-signatures over there.
Yeah. What about soft chromatograms? How we can go?
It depends upon what type of printouts you are getting from that. So how long it stays, we don't know about that. Whether it is a thermal paper or which paper it is coming on that, you need to look into this, and based on that, you need to find out. Otherwise, you can Xerox it and keep that as a document for that matter.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dr. Preetham.
Yes, Dr. Kalyankar, any question from you?
Yeah, I only ask now. It's
Okay,
a
okay.
good session. And for Jyoti, one question, like if by accident in the archive system,
Yeah.
so suppose any test attempt is by accident is fallen or something is happened. So how to go ahead?
Test item has spilled in the archives, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, study is going on 1 or 2 years. So something is happened to test attempt. So how we can manage that time?
Okay, I would suggest that the very same batch of test item which is being used for the conduct of the study needs to be archived again. You can ask that from the sponsor again, and the entire flow of the test item transportation from the sponsor. First communicate that to the sponsor, and you just receive it again from the sponsor. Make sure that it is of the same batch, and then you archive it again, specifying clearly. The archivist should clearly mention in the records that this has been spelled out, and I mean the quantity is not there anymore, and they have requested to the test facility management and study director to get it again from the sponsor. Ideally, it should not be there, I won't say, but in case it happens, of course, but there has to be a test item for every batch of test item used. It has to be there in the archives. So you can ask the sponsor again for that very same batch.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's again a part of the disaster recovery plan. That's another kind of disaster you just said.
I just wanted to mention about this is that GLP is not that you need to follow everything as per the guidelines over there or as per your SOP. Sometimes, yes, there are certain things happening to your studies, certain things happening to your test items, certain things happening to your test system. Obviously, you can modify whatever you are doing and record that. Recording is very important for that matter. If it is spilled out, yes, you can record that it is spilled out, and you can again, whatever Jyoti has explained, follow that instructions, and you can keep the sample in your archive over there.
Yeah. That's when I said that in the disaster recovery plan, document the event. So you need to document it in a particular format. Inform it to the management, and anytime, like Sir just said, anything can happen anytime, but for that matter, GLP has given you a word called deviation. So you need to just record the deviation, whatever has happened, and you can have a corrective action based ahead on that.
We are all human beings, you tend to make mistakes over there. So obviously GLP has, but GLP says, yes, you can make mistake, but please correct your mistakes and record that mistake.
File the deviations.
File the deviation.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you very much. If at all there are no questions, Akash, you can conclude the session if at all you want to. आपका बोलो कुछ हिंदी में बोलो मराठी में बोलो.
सबसे पहले आकाश congratulations बोलो सबको. I'm so happy आज इंडिया ने 2 medals जीते. I'm
yes.
Really happy for that.
Yes, Shweta has come out. Yes, Shweta, you have any question?
No, sir, no.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
So
आपका फोटो सेशन हो गया आकाश?
Yes, हो गया. ग्रुप में भी शेयर किए मैंने कुछ फोटोज.
अरे वाह, अच्छा, thank you
sir for this wonderful session.
thanks a lot. Now I'm feeling hungry, so
me too.
Okay.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Shraddha, don't
Happy
call me
weekend. Yeah, Jyoti. Sorry. Happy weekend, all of you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
happy weekend to all of you.
Happy weekend.